So as everyone probably knows, a massive round of US tariffs has been sending shockwaves across the entire world. The S&P 500 has absolutely tumbled by around 15%. So in this video, I'm telling you how I am making sure I am protecting my wealth as well as my freedom in an increasingly uncertain world. There is more uncertainty in the Western world than ever. Risks of a recession are now higher than we've ever seen since 2021, literally in the middle of the pandemic. These countries in the West that used to be allies now seem to hate each other. They're all fighting, and generally you have this sense that these countries are declining. There are declining empires that are going down. So if you're someone who has money, or you're an entrepreneur making a lot of money and you have something to lose, it is pretty important to understand how to navigate this entire situation in a very changing world, because we're no longer in the same world that we were before. And if you're just following the same advice that you've heard for the past 20 years, it is unlikely to work as well anymore. So in this video, I'm not only going to tell you like, oh, invest across different markets. I'm going to tell you very broadly what I am doing to not just protect my wealth, but protect my freedom, not be trapped by these countries in some very bad situation if things keep getting worse and worse. And by the way, none of this is going to be investment advice, none of this is tax advice. It's just what I am doing, some of the things that I have been doing for a long time, the plan that I have been putting in place, and some of the things that perhaps I haven't done yet, but I am looking to do in the near future. We'll talk about investments later on, but I think what's even more important than where you're putting your money is where you're putting yourself. Because what these tariffs are is just a symptom of a much larger trend of these Western countries going down. Living standards are going down. People are getting angrier, so they are looking for these drastic solutions to fix things. And to me personally, this is not something that I want to be in the middle of, because eventually when these tariffs don't work, they don't fix people's lives, what are they going to look at, and what are they looking at already? Well, they're going to see these people at the top who have a lot of money, and they're going to say, well, they have money, I don't have money, why don't we take them? The UK is talking about a wealth tax. These countries that are increasingly indebted, they've essentially spent themselves into a massive hole, so they're going to have no other choice but to trap people into their tax systems with exit taxes, with citizenship-based taxation, to try to fix their reckless spending and their terrible finances. So the number one thing for me, even beyond where I'm putting my money, is where am I putting my personal ties? Where am I putting my business? Where am I putting my banking? Where it's all going to be protected? And obviously no one knows exactly what is going to happen, but what I am looking at is how can I have ties in multiple countries? How can I have multiple residencies, and ideally a main base in a place that I have a lot of confidence in, that is stable, that is going up, that is doing well financially, that's not completely broke, so they're not going to have to like try to take my money. For me, the choice of that main place is going to be the UAE. It's an extremely safe place in this very tumultuous world. Why? Because they're actually doing very well financially. They make more money than they spend, and they have some of the highest sovereign wealth in the entire world. So even if there was a downturn, they could afford to easily be in a deficit for a long time and just draw on that natural wealth that they have. This is why we see the highest number of millionaires in the world these days moving to the UAE, because it's a very safe place to put your personal ties, your tax residence, your business, and your money. And for now, it's very, very easy to relocate to the UAE. But I think that this is going to have to change at some point, because so much wealth, so many people are relocating to the UAE. At some point, they're going to have to become like Singapore, where they become a lot more selective. You can't just go there and set up a business without any requirements like you can now. So when you have opportunities like this, now maybe UAE isn't for you, but if it is the kind of place that you see as an option, you might want to get that residency now while you still can. Now, we have a company where we've helped more than 300 people set up in the UAE. We will set up your company for you. We will go through this entire process, get your residence visa for you. We also now have a VVIP service where this entire process can be completed in as little as 1 week. We have 5 stars in Trustpilot, 5-star in Google reviews. I'm not saying you have to use our services, but if you are interested, then you can book a free call from the first link down below in the description. Now, this doesn't mean that you put all your ties now into the UAE. You actually don't want to do that, but I'm saying that this is where you want to have your tax residence, so you can reduce your taxes legally all the way down to 0. This is where you can have your business, your banking, so you can move all of this and move your main ties to a much more stable place than these Western countries. Another advantage of a move like this to a more tax-friendly place is that not only can you protect your money from future tax increases, but even right now, in a case like this where there's turbulence, there might be some market crash, your business might suffer if there is a recession, because you're not having to give half of your income to the government for them to waste it every single month, every single year, you have such a higher cushion to ride out these storms. You're going to have such a competitive advantage over your competitors because you don't necessarily have to worry too much about short-term fluctuations, because with these tax savings, you can build wealth so much faster. And the thing is, if things change, something happens to the UAE, which is unlikely, you can always just move again. So the bigger thing here is having the mindset of not just being tied to one place, not just being stuck in one place, looking at the world, keeping an eye on the trends and going to the places that are going in the right direction and making your bet in that way, rather than just being stuck in the place that you were born, even when things start to go south. The next step is going to be, where do you invest your money? And the name of the game, again, is going to be diversification. But I'm not just talking about the diversification that is the traditional wisdom of, oh, you just put your money into the S&P 500 because it's diversified across 500 companies. Because as we can see in this kind of world, it is not entirely obvious that the US markets are going to keep outperforming everyone else. And I'm not just talking about this particular situation. Okay, it's a short-term crash. Who knows what's going to happen? They could rebound. Probably they will eventually rebound. But the point is that you don't know that it's the US market that is going to be the safe haven for your money, just because that has been the case for the past 20, 30 years or something like that. It's happened in Japan in like 1990s, I believe. Japan was the place that everyone thought was going to become the new superpower, but then they stopped growing. They started declining, and there was a massive market crash in Japan, and it took 30 years for the market to recover. Who's to say that this cannot happen in a place like the US? So what I want to do is diversify my money across many different countries, because I don't know which will do well. So I want to have it diversified so that no matter what happens, I'm not losing 15% of my net worth because of some decision that some president makes. Now, I myself was lucky enough that I actually sold like 75% of my S&P 500, my US holdings, in around February, which turned out to be the exact right time to do that. Now, I'm not saying I'm some market expert. I was just lucky that that was the particular time. When I happened to look into the valuations, I saw that they were crazily overvalued, and I decided like, okay, at some point they're gonna have to crash, so let me divest away from that. But it sort of illustrates a more important point, where if you just had all of your eggs in one market because you think, oh, it's diversified across 500 companies. Well, first of all, the S&P 500 is mainly concentrated in a few of the most valuable stocks at the top. But even if it was diversified across 500 companies, those 500 companies are still tied to this economy of this empire that is now a lot more uncertain than it has been in the past. So what I have done, and this is not investment advice, diversified my money across many different markets. And my main goal is not even to get the highest return, but what my main goal is wealth preservation, because I am not an investor, I'm an entrepreneur first. So what I'm increasingly also looking at is real estate, specifically real estate in markets where it makes sense to buy, where rental yields are good. If you've been following this channel, you know that I'm very interested in buying property in the UAE very, very soon. Why? Because the rental yields are extremely good. It's an extremely great market to buy. It's very easy to buy. It's very safe. Obviously, there's risks everywhere. I'm not saying I know that, oh, the UAE property market is going to keep pumping. It might not. But what I'm looking at it is a security play, because seeing as the UAE is the kind of place that I'm going to want to have as a base for myself for a very long time, even if property values go down, it's kind of different to when stocks go down, because when a property goes down, it's still a place where you can live. Whereas when stocks go down, you can't really do anything with those stocks. They don't have any intrinsic value. So that is why I'm really looking more and more into real estate, and specifically what my goal has been for a long time, both from a wealth preservation standpoint, but also from a lifestyle standpoint, is having homes that I own in all of the different places around the world where I want to spend time, that I want to have as bases. The UAE is going to be one of them. So even if something happens to the market, I can still live in that place and have the largest line item of my expenses, that is housing, be completely eliminated. And then in the future, I want to buy properties in other places around the world where I want to spend time. For now, what I'm doing is I'm holding like 70% in cash of my net worth, just because I'm waiting for the right opportunity to buy some real estate. And being in the UAE, I still get very, very good interest rates on that money. I have it on my personal savings spaces, as well as my first Abu Dhabi bank savings account. So if you're in the UAE, you might want to look into those. I get 4.75% interest in both of those banks, which is very, very good. I'm very, very happy with that. So I'm not really rushing to like put my money into new investments or anything like that. And the other thing in terms of diversification is currency diversification. Now, I've got into this a little bit via the different funds that I buy from Interactive Brokers, the broker that I use. I have a lot of money in Singapore dollars, in the Chinese market, in different markets around the world. And of course, when you do that, you automatically essentially get exposure to that currency. Eventually, again, property in different currencies. So again, if, and this is very possible now, the US dollar stops being the dominant currency in the world, then you're not essentially completely screwed, because you don't want to be stuck in this outdated worldview where the US dollar is the best currency and it's never going to go down, when in this world that we're moving into, this more uncertain world where these Western empires are more and more shaky, it is no longer as obvious that that is going to remain the case. Other things I'm looking at is just business and income diversification. So I mean multiple different businesses. Right now, I'm not saying that's the right choice for everyone, but for me, I like that diversification of multiple different income sources from multiple different markets. So if one market does badly, then I have these other ones, and also having these income sources not be correlated to each other. And even more broadly, where I have my companies is diversified. I have a company in the UAE, have a US LLC, and I'm constantly looking at different company options, different banking options around the world. That's yet another thing, international banking, which I, again, haven't really got into, but that's going to be kind of the next step for me. All of my banking for right now is in the UAE, in mostly UAE dirhams, which is quite concentrated. As much as the banks in the UAE are extremely safe, extremely well capitalized, in the long run, you never know what is going to happen. So what I'm going to want to look at is banking perhaps in Singapore. They seem to have the best banks in the world. Banking in different countries where I perhaps create residence permits. And obviously the next step beyond this is to get multiple citizenship, multiple passports, which again, I want to eventually get into. Hasn't really been timely yet for me. Essentially, the entire point here is don't just look at diversifying within one country as has been the traditional wisdom. Look into diversifying across countries for your businesses, for your personal ties, for your tax residency, for your investments, for your properties and everything like that. And that is how you can protect your wealth, protect your freedom in this world where with these Western countries are declining and other countries are rising. If you're interested to know exactly how to relocate to the UAE, if now you're wondering what is the process like, how does that work, I made this video right here, one of the most popular videos on this channel, my full guide on relocating to the UAE. So watch that video next, and I will see you in the next one.